opinions and views expressed in the following program are those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Monday edition of Ysn's Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. My name is Ty Bartell. No Anthony Hartwig today. He's living it up down in the sun of Georgia, too. You see the social media pictures of him on the campus of Georgia Tech. He's loving it up down there. But we're taking care of business up here, and boy, oh boy, do we have a lot of scores to get to over the weekend set of games, both Friday and Saturday. We got to talk some things going into power rankings that they're going to be dropping this week too. We'll take a look at the last power rankings too last week too, and just predict some of the changes too, and just see what the outlook of that's going to be too. We're going to have Richie Giuliano also joining us at 1 o'clock too. We're going to talk a little YSU baseball with him too, and he's going to be on for some picks today too, and hopefully we get some games in. A lot of weather happening outside right now, at least here in Portage County, looking out the window, a lot of rain happening right now. So we hope to get some games in tonight, but Richie Giuliano will be joining us at 1 o'clock. We also are going to be playing a pre-recorded interview done by Anthony Hartwig. So not live on the show today, but you're still going to hear his voice. It was done with Skylar Greenhyson, too, softball player. So actually, story just dropped, I think, this morning, just moments before this show. You can go find that on ysnlive.com, too, as well as, I believe, our YouTube page will also have the interview as well. I believe the coin or the tagline for it is "The Sky's the Limit," too. So go check that out as well for the story attached to that. But we're going to give her some FaceTime as well, as Anthony Hartwig was able to do the interview. We'll get to that a little bit later on in the show. But like I said, first and foremost, we got a lot of games that happened too that we have to get to score-wise. And why not start in the Friday realm? Start with softball too. First score we have on the docket, West Branch getting a 13-0 win over Girard. And I mean, just a big win for the Warriors too, continuing to roll. You saw where they were ranked. We'll have to see how they stay ranked too in this upcoming power ranking. Lakeview too. We were talking a little bit about it. I think Friday, Anthony was tuning in and chiming in with the Lakeview score update against St. Vincent St. Mary's in that first game. Well, fell a little bit short in that first game in the comeback effort. Akron St. V's winning game one of that doubleheader 10-8 against Lakeview. But credit the Bulldogs coming back strong in game two, a 7-3 victory for Lakeview. And you got to feel like that's going to do them a little bit of justice going into this week's power rankings too. We'll see where Lakeview gets ranked going forward, but they've looked like a strong contender in that NE8. And oh my goodness, when conference play opens up in that, it's going to be one exciting time. Poland getting a win and I believe a defeat too down in their tournament too. Poland beating Indian Valley by a score of 12-8. And then Anthony Wayne beating Poland by a score of 1-0 too later on in that evening. Hubbard beating Bristol by a score of 5-1 in the softball realm, as the Eagles were, I believe, hanging on to that 10 slot in the power rankings. We'll see if that does them justice as they continue to gain victories. Springfield gets a big win inside the MVAC Scarlet side of the conference with a 5-1 victory over the Waterloo Vikings too. So Tigers continuing to roll, getting another conference win under their belt. Champion big statement win too. And I mean, this is what we said about these flashes. And this is a three-peat champion team from just a few seasons ago. 16-1 victory against LeBray. And I mean, that's emphatically putting a stamp on it too, as a strong contender for the conference crown, and a lot more in the hopes of the champion softball team going forward. In the baseball realm on Friday, actually during the show, I believe actually just previous to the show, we actually didn't get this score, but Salem beating Bishop Timon in the morning 9-1, getting that victory on the baseball side. So credit the Quakers as they get another victory too, and see if they'll do them justice in our baseball power rankings going forward. Brookfield getting a big fourth inning against the Camel Red Devils on the baseball realm. Camel was actually leading this game 5-4 in the fourth inning, but a 4-run fourth made it 8-5 or 8-5. Yeah, 8-5 Brookfield. And then the Warriors just never looked back, continued piling it on. I believe it was a 15-5 final for the Warriors against the Red Devils in that one, as they get a big victory too, get some confidence building too, as they've dropped a couple of games and a couple of close ones as well. West Branch on the baseball side of things continuing to look dominant too, a 13-3 victory against Akron Springfield too. So the Warriors trying to get themselves noticed too and get themselves moving up in the power rankings. That's a big win for them as they continue to look strong. Lisbon getting a huge out-of-conference win going into the MVAC Scarlet side, defeating Western Reserve by a score of 15-4 in a battle of the Blue Devils. Lisbon coming out on top, and like I said, an emphatic victory for Lisbon, looking to get some non-conference wins and trying to compete inside that EOAC. As we look down, Lakeview, as it was the master going up against his trainee too. Cameron Carson goes back to Coach Gennari, to the man that coached him, and big game that happened too on the Friday night baseball room. I believe this game actually got postponed. It was scheduled, I think, for Thursday, but I think they postponed it to Friday. But nonetheless, this was a fun game because Coach Carson gets to go back to Niles, I believe, and it was against Coach Gennari. And Coach Gennari going up against one of the men that he coached too, played under Coach Gennari for a while, did Coach Carson over at Lakeview. But nonetheless, Bulldogs continuing to look very strong too. Another conference win as well, as they defeated Niles 5-1, as it's going to do them justice, you figure too, as Lakeview beating big teams like Ursuline. Now Niles was another team you were figuring is looking from the outside looking in on those power rankings. That's just another big win for the Bulldogs as they continue to look strong and continuing to make the case on why they should also be on the power rankings, see if they get featured on this next one coming up. Hubbard with a huge 13-0 victory over Struthers in the baseball realm. How about this? Brady Adams and Evan McBain combined for a no-hitter in this one, as the Eagles fly away with the victory against the Cats in this one. Again, 13-0 against Struthers, Howland. Yeah, talking about Hubbard so much too, talking about the Eagles. Actually, let's talk about a battle of the Cats. That my fault. Howland actually beating Struthers 13-0. Brady Adams and Evan McBain combined for a no-hitter, as the Tigers win the battle of the Cats. I had a whole tagline up for everything too. Blew that one. No, Howland though 13-0, and this was a huge win too for the AAC conference, as this is another team. Should we be talking about the Tigers? Boardman, Fitch, and Canfield all making that power ranking list last week. We'll see if they make it again for the second week in a row, but does Howland have a place on this list too? That's a big win again. Brady Adams, Evan McBain combined no-hitter for the Tigers against Struthers. Garfield beating Newton Falls by a score of 5-2, as the G-men got back on track against the Tigers, the Newton Falls Tigers this time. And Newton Falls, of course, having some decent victories, especially in their conference this year, but that's a big win for Garfield nonetheless, as they get, like I said, get back on track 5-2 against Newton Falls. Columbiana continuing to look impressive as they go to, I believe, a perfect 9-0 on the season now, as the Clippers clap along with a 11-5 victory against the East Liverpool Potters. And that's just a huge win for the Clippers. We'll see if it does them justice. I've been making a case for them this whole week, or this past week, I should say, about the Clippers being a potential top 5 team inside the power rankings. They've looked strong, and they continue to look strong going forward. Canfield going to my backyard too over at Kent and getting a win against Erie Cathedral Prep by a score of 12-2. Cardinal pitching just looking so dominant on the season, doing so once again, getting an emphatic 10-run victory. Going into some Saturday softball games too, Marshwood beating Struthers by a score of 14-4. Weir defeating Crestview by a score of 6-4. And then Crestview winning 15-2 in Tennessee Pigeon Forge. Also, baseball realm, Hubbard had a doubleheader with, I believe, Goshen is in the name of the school. 3-2, Hubbard getting the victory in game 1 of the doubleheader on the baseball side. Game 2, dropping that one by a score of 10-0, so splitting 1-1 with Goshen. Also, in the softball realm in the Saturday slate of games, there was a doubleheader for McDonald and Jackson Milton, and McDonald Blue Devils taking both games in that doubleheader. First one was a close one, 6-4, where Jackson Milton looked like they were on the comeback trail, looked like they were right there, and just stopped a bit short as the Blue Devils were able to hold on for the 6-4 victory. Also looking at it, the Blue Devils going into game 2 were able to get the 13-6 victory over Jackson Milton. So a couple of big conference wins for the Blue Devils inside that MVAC Scarlet side. We'll see if it does them justice going forward as they battle for a conference crown. Columbiana also beating Station Camp by a score of 3-1 in the softball realm on Saturday. Now, with all that being said, digest all those games being said, let's take a look now back at our last week's power rankings, because we know until this new week's drops, we can still reference last week's and talk about what can and what is expected to change. And let's have a conversation about it overall. As we go and open up real quick, let's go ladies first with the softball side of things. As we talked about this and we look at the scores that happened from the Friday and Saturday slate of games that we haven't gotten a chance to talk about since the Friday show on the softball side, I mean, West Branch continuing to win. They got a 13-0 victory. I feel like that's going to do them justice, sitting in that 3 spot. Lakeview splitting with Akron St. Vincent St. Mary's. I think it's going to be huge for them going forward. They're sitting in that 8 spot. I think it's going to keep them on this list going forward. We'll have to see how the voting all turned out. Poland splitting, but just continuing to win and get big victories. That 12-8 victory against Indian Valley is huge for them going forward. So I think the Bulldogs sitting in that 7 spot, trying to keep themselves on this list. Hubbard, like we said, beating Bristol too, 5-1, and they're sitting in that 10 spot. They need victories to keep themselves on this list. They continue to win. We'll see if they continue to get ranked. Springfield beating Waterloo, like we said too, on the softball realm, 5-1. Does that give them a spot on here? Are they going to be fighting for a spot on here? We'll see if Springfield can maybe grab a seed in these top 10 spots in the power rankings. Champion, I think, is going to be that 16-1 victory against LeBray is going to be huge for the Flashes going forward, as they're still just a top 5 ranked team. And I think they only had 4 games under their belt when we last talked on Friday's show. Obviously getting some more over the weekend and just continuing to look strong in those games. So Champion, I believe, going to continue be featured in those top 5. But what do you think too? What are some other teams inside these top 10 seeds that belong there? With some teams that can move up, some teams that can move down? Hey, maybe some even new teams that you think can join this list on the softball realm as well. Looking forward to, I mean, what other games do we have going on with McDonald getting 2 victories against Jackson Milton? That's 2 wins inside the Scarlet side. Which team out of McDonald and Springfield making a stronger impact over the weekend? Is it enough to maybe get them into conversations of possibly cracking this top 10 as well? Looking forward to Fitch continuing to look dominant. Ursuline getting big victories, but I believe they suffered their first defeat, like we talked about on Friday, their first and only defeat of the season. Does it leave an opportunity for South Range to get into the top 3, possibly even into that 2 spot? We'll have to see. Speaking of which, too, we'll have to talk a little bit on these softball coaches polls too, and we will talk about Fitch and South Range on that and talk about that in a little bit as well. But talking about just these top 10 power rankings right now, I think it gives South Range an opportunity with a great showing down in Myrtle to get into the top 3, but we'll see how our voters voted. And a big question too, we'll talk about this with maybe Richie, and we'll talk about this throughout the comments section as well, and let us know what you think. Let's have a discussion about it. Who makes the best case to dethrone these number 1 ranked power ranked teams? And of course, we know on this softball side, like we've been covering and like we've been talking about, Fitch sitting in that number 1 seed for the softball power rankings. Who makes the best case going forward to dethrone them number 1 overall in the softball side of things? Let me know what you think. Personally, looking at this list, I think there's potential for two, possibly 3 for me that can dethrone Fitch as a number 1 seed. I stand pretty firm on, and I believe that's where I ranked them too, and that's where I've continuously ranked them in my voting the last few weeks, as Fitch number 1 in the softball realm. Is there anybody, and I'll get to mine in a little bit here, but is there anybody, take a look at this list, is there anybody that you believe can dethrone Fitch from the number 1 seed in the softball realm? Let me know what you think. Let's have a discussion about it. Go over to the baseball realm real quick before we talk about all that, and just look at this and some of the wins that happened in the baseball realm that are going to pay dividends. Salem dropping to 8, but getting that big win over Bishop Timon 9-1. We'll see how that ranks the Quakes going forward. West Branch too. We talked about West Branch not making this list, but they continue to look impressive. 13-3. Lisbon getting a 15-4 victory. They look impressive. But we got to talk about Lakeview too. 5-1 victory over Niles. And we kind of figured too, Garfield, even though credit Garfield, like we said, they got back on track with a 5-2 victory against Newton Falls. I just think the games that Garfield did drop is going to be enough to drop them out of the top 10 for this week coming up. But we'll see how the voters voted. If there's one team to kind of take that 10 spot, I think it's got to be Lakeview with that 5-1 victory over Niles, continuing to look strong. The Bulldogs on the baseball side of things, making a great case, I think, for making this list. Columbiana with that 11-5 victory, they're sitting at 7. I think they make a case to crack the top 5. And we talked Canfield beating Erie Cathedral Prep by a score of 12-2, and that's another discussion going forward before these new power rankings drop. We talked about the softball side of things. Let's talk about the baseball side of things. Is there a team in the baseball side that you can see dethroning the number 1 seed at Canfield? If so, what team is that you believe can dethrone number 1 seed at Canfield? What team makes a strong enough case, if there is any, to make a strong enough case? We talked about the softball side of Fitch. We'll talk about the baseball side with Canfield. Which team, if there's any, makes the best case of dethroning number 1 seed at Canfield as we await for the new power rankings to drop? Like we said, that usually occurs on the on Tuesdays, I believe, is when we had them drop the last few times. So stay tuned to our socials for that, obviously. But which teams make the best case to dethrone these number 1 seeds? And I'll go back to the softball side, and we'll talk about this a little bit. And let me know your opinions down in the comments section. And transparency, fully transparency. I think I voted Fitch number 1 the last few weeks. But looking at this, which team makes the best case to dethrone the Falcons at number 1? I said there's 2 teams that I have strong opinions for right out the gate in mind, and then a third one possibly just because of the way they've been playing and the competition they face. But first and foremost, if there's one team that I think that can dethrone the Falcons number 1 in this list, it has to be South Range. And let's look real quick too. Let's talk about this poll. And here's a strong reason why. Talking about the coaches' polls that dropped in the softball realm. In Division 1, these are just YSN teams too. We'll shout out the YSN teams. But in Division 1, Fitch was ranked 4th in the Ohio High School Softball Coaches Poll. And they received a total of 2 first-place votes and got a total of 87 points. Watkins Memorial's 1, Anthony Wayne is 2, Lancaster is 3, Fitch is 4 overall in the coaches poll in Division I, making a strong showing and a strong case. I think the Falcons looking very strong. But here's a caveat too. South Range ranked number 3 in the coaches poll in Division III, receiving a total of 2 first-place votes and 68 total points. Wheelersburg was 1, and Cardington Lincoln is 2, with South Range being 3. And this is just calculating weeks 1 through 5 in the softball realm. But South Range ranked number 3 in their division in the high school coaches poll. Fitch number 4 in Division I. Both strong cases. Division I obviously is a gauntlet getting through regionals, but so is every division here. I would say too, and like we talked about it, let's have a discussion. Let me know your opinions on it. Which team makes the best case to dethrone Fitch at number 1 for the softball power rankings? I think South Range is making a case. I think Champion is continuing to make a case. They need to get a couple more games in, but Champion always is looming. And of course, you got to talk about the flashes. I mean, how can you not? They've been looking very strong year in and year out, but they're going to be competing in that Division III as well. And it's going to come down between South Range and Champion, too. One of them is going to have to stand out in the tournament. But I think Champion obviously makes a case for number 1. But talk about Ursuline, too. They were ranked 2. They're right there. They're closest. Suffering that defeat, that first defeat, does it put enough space between Fitch and Ursuline now to make a case? Because right now, Champion, I believe, undefeated. South Range, I believe, undefeated as well, with the exception of 1 loss, I believe. Actually, 1 loss down and undefeated in Myrtle Beach is what I was referencing. 1 loss down in Myrtle Beach, Does South Range, with the level of competition they play, does Champion with an undefeated record, 3-peat state champions from just a couple years ago, do they make a strong enough case for a number 1 rank? Does Ursuline make a strong enough case? I mean, the teams that the Irish have faced in the softball side have been no joke, and they've come away victorious on all but 1. Do the Irish make a strong enough case? Falcons still undefeated going into Myrtle, and I don't believe their game going to be happening today, as Myrtle Beach is experiencing some sort of rain too. And what do you know? The rain follows the Falcons, it seems like, from Ohio all the way down there, but not looking much better up here either with the rain as well. But Fitch, I believe, 10-0 on the season. Undefeated record, looking strong, ranked 4th in the coaches poll in Division I. Let us know what you think on that softball side. Interesting discussion point, and what teams can dethrone the Falcons at number 1. Going over to the baseball side, Canfield, even with the defeats that Canfield has faced, the schedule that they have played is so strong that the wins that they are able to get against some of the state's best is, I think, enough to just keep them at number 1. And that's where I've continued to vote them the last couple weeks. But in the interest of fairness and just talking same discussion, what are some teams that can dethrone Canfield at number 1? Realistically, of course. JFK right now was 2-2, I believe. Last I checked. Record could have been updated, of course, but rain keeping them off the field. But the Eagles, of course, Division IV state champions, they can obviously make a case, but just not getting a whole lot of games in, unlike the Cardinals. Boardman defeating the Cardinals is going to be obviously a big win. I think Boardman has 1 defeat on the season. But do they make a strong enough case having that 1 win against Canfield? I think Game 2 is going to prove or at least make a lot of things a lot more clear going forward, because we'll see how close that game is. Heck, if Boardman even wins that second game against the Cardinals, is that enough to push them in the number 1 seed? I mean, if you hold 2 victories now against Canfield, is that strong enough? I personally think that would be a strong enough case for Boardman to crack number 1. Does South Range make a case of cracking number 1 seed and getting over? And that's a battle of Canfield teams too. Does South Range make a case to dethrone Canfield at number 1 too. I think Canfield's schedule has been tough. It's been proven tough, and time again, they've come out on top of it. But let us know what you think. What teams do you think can dethrone Canfield? Columbiana, I think, is going to have a chance to crack the top 5, and if they keep rolling like the way they are, hey, maybe Columbiana might even have a chance to get in there. But I don't know. It's just the schedule that the Cardinals are playing right now is so tough. But Ursuline, you got to figure, is going to be dropping off of this. This is last week's power rankings. Ursuline's going to be dropping off of this and dropping down by the time week 3's drop, as we await for that to happen. Looking for Tuesday for that to happen. But you got to expect Ursuline to drop on this list. You got to expect Garfield probably to drop off, I would think. Lakeview, I'm going to almost expect to make an appearance on this list somewhere. Where does that leave teams to move up? Who takes number 2? Who takes number 1? Does Canfield continue to secure number 1 in week 3 as we await for the power rankings to drop? Let us know what you think. What are some teams, if any, that can dethrone the Cardinals at number 1? And what are some teams, if any, that can dethrone the Falcons at number 1 in the softball rankings, as we just talked about that too, as both the Birds sitting on top of the perches of the power rankings and a lot of teams under them looking to claim that top spot, as both Fitch and Canfield have held it for 2 consecutive weeks, looking to go 3 consecutive going into this next power rankings drop. So exciting. We look forward to that, and we'll see how that all pans out. But don't forget, we still have to play Anthony Hartwig's interview with Skylar Greenheisen that was, again, dropped on the social media pages this morning, as well as it can be found on ysnlive.com, as well as our YouTube page at YSN Live. It was Anthony Hartwig's interview with Skylar Greenheisen, and I believe the article, its title is The Sky's the Limit. To check out the article, go check that out again at ysnlive.com. As well as at 1 o'clock, we are going to be joined by Richie Giuliano, the voice of the YSU Penguins, too. And we're going to talk a little Penguins baseball, go into the college realm, talk about this Horizon League and how things are going to be shaping up, too. Still a lot of games for the Penguins to play, and they still got a fighting chance. So we're going to talk with Richie Giuliano about that as well as Richie's going to stay on. We're going to talk about the picks in the high school realm, make our picks, I should say, talk about the games in the high school realm and what's going on around the area as well as just some other games that we're excited for. We're going to go to our first break, but we have another discussion that's going to be coming up too, either after the break or later in the show. We'll decide here if it's going to be before or after the Anthony's interview with Skylar. But we talk about it too, and we're seeing a lot of discussions generating on social media, and we're seeing a lot of posts. We're seeing even a lot of GoFundMes starting due to some violence that's occurred with officiating, and we don't like discussing too. We don't like going into dark matter too. But there's no doubt that there's got to be some correlation to why there's a lack in high school officiating, and we've been seeing it in the area, and we've been seeing it around the state too. I just posed the question to all of you, and I want to have a discussion about it. What is the solution to the lack of high school officiating? Simple question. You could take that as correlation. I believe there's correlation with why, with the criticism that high school officials do face, and what does happen sometimes on the court. But we'll see too. There's no doubt a lack of high school officiating, but there's also a lack of jobs everywhere, to be fair, and look at it from the other side of the coin too. So is this just a downward trend because there's jobs going down everywhere? People aren't working at a lot of places everywhere. There's a lot of people that are struggling to hire people at a lot of places. So is this just the same trend we're seeing in high school officiating, or is there something more? But it's a simple question. Let me know what you think. Let's have a discussion about it. What is the solution to the lack of high school officiating? As we'll go into our first break of the day, don't forget, like I said, we still have Anthony Hartwig's interview that we're going to be playing pre-recorded with Skylar Greenheisen, as well as upcoming at 1 o'clock, Richie Giuliano from the YSU Penguins baseball team, going to talk a little bit of Penguins baseball, as well as talking a little bit about the high school games around the area and making picks. This is Ty Bartell, and this is YSN's Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
New things happen all day. Some are good, some not so good. In today's complicated world, while you're busy working, playing, and living life, we're busy helping you make sense of the day's news. And there's only one place where it comes together with clarity, context, and accountability. It's 21 News at 6 with me, Madison Tromler, and Derek Steyer.
21 News at 6. It's what the day's news really means to you.
Welcome home to a home made homier with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Inspiration starts at BairdBrothers.com and is turned into reality when high-quality hardwoods are delivered right to your home. Baird Brothers has the latest design trends, shiplap and skinny lap interior siding, antique oak rustic flooring, and, well, you'll find them all at BairdBrothers.com. Ordered easily, delivered conveniently, enjoyed comfortably. BairdBrothers.com.
At Greenwood Chevrolet, shop with confidence knowing we're ready to go the extra mile for you. With the largest selection of used vehicles in the Valley, backed by the Greenwood Advantage Warranty. Every one of our vehicles has undergone our own 126-point inspection, so it passes the most important inspection, yours. No other dealership has the extra inventory, gives you extra for your trade, and goes the extra mile for you. Only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
WRS Wealth Advisors, the area's premier wealth and retirement specialists. Located on South Avenue in Boardman.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the four words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
When looking for home design inspiration, don't just be inspired, be Baird inspired. Whether new or remodeling, Baird Brothers has the latest trends like shiplap to refresh your home. Go from inspiration to installation with our wide selection of in-stock American hardwoods. From the rustic charm of antique oak to the warmth of traditional cherry, Baird Brothers has what you need to make your home inspiring. Baird Brothers, our family's heritage, your family's home.
For a great vehicle and a great experience, come to Boardman Mitsubishi today. As always, our full lineup of Mitsubishi models comes with a standard 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. Boardman Mitsubishi, your hometown Mitsubishi dealer since 1999.
Coca's Pizza, always supporting our community and our local athletes. Stop in on game day or score big and have it delivered right to your door. Check out our daily specials at cocaspizza.com. That's Coca's Pizza, we serve it hot.
At Hubbard Chevrolet, Hubbard can help you get the financing you need regardless of your situation. I'm Tony Page, and I've helped thousands of customers in Northeast Ohio and Western Pennsylvania buy a vehicle. Visit HubbardChevy.com to get pre-approved. Remember, folks, Hubbard can help.
You're not waiting to see what the world has in store for you. It's more about what you have in store for the world. All you need is the opportunity. All you need are the resources of a large university and the advantages of a personalized academic setting where you can experience new worlds in the arts and sciences, business, and education and make them your own. We are where you shape your future. We are Youngstown State University and proud.
Welcome back, everyone, to YSN's Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Ty Bartzel here with you, carrying you through today's Monday show of Running Point. As we were talking before the break, and I want to continue this conversation too in the baseball power rankings, because our friends over at WFMJ posting a great article. You can find it over at WFMJ.com. And it's about the baseball team. 6 teams are ranked in the coaches poll. And I wanted to take a look at this too. And you can, again, find this right over at WFMJ.com. 6 area baseball teams are ranked in the coaches poll. In Division 2, Canfield is ranked number 6 in the baseball side. And then we go down to Division 3. Canfield 7-2, by the way, at the time of this ranking, number 6 in Division 2, and that's a very tough Division 2 to compete in. And Cardinals playing the toughest of the tough, so they get ranked in Division 2. Division 3 actually has a lot of representation, with 5 teams being represented in the coaches poll. Columbiana being the highest, ranked number 2 in Division 3 in the coaches poll. On the baseball side of things, 9-0 is their record right now. And that's huge for the Clippers going forward. We talked about them being 7th ranked in our power rankings. We'll see how they continue to move up. South Range 7-0. They're number 6 in the Division 3 coaches poll rankings. Number 14 is Crestview with a 7-0 record. They're represented on the Division 3 side. And then rounding things out at number 20 is Champion with a 6-2 record. So some area teams getting a lot of representation in the coaches poll. Again, you can find that article over at WFMJ.com, posted by Dana Balish. So doing a great job over there. We wanted to highlight our friends over at WFMJ and look at those coaches polls too, just getting some more area opinions too, and just some coaches' opinions on some of the area's talented baseball teams. As we talked about the softball realm, and we talked about both South Range and Fitch being ranked in that realm. Fitch was number 4. South Range was number 3 in the softball realm. So really just looking at those teams and what the coaches are thinking of our area teams around the area and how it kind of correlates with our power rankings. All fun discussions too. Just talk about with the area baseball and softball teams. We talked about WFMJ and just staying on track with them. We can look over at the Storm Tracker too, over at WFMJ.com, and just a look at the weather coming up for us here today, which right now it's not looking the greatest outside, but we look at the weather. It looks like 100% chance of rain to 4 p.m., 80% chance at 5, and then it starts going down towards 60 and 40 following that. Temperature a little bit colder today. We'll stay with our teams and see how many games get canceled throughout the day, and we'll keep you updated here on ysnlive.com and throughout the show Running Point. But yeah, just a cold, wet, damp day here on Monday, and called it the Monday Blues, and it feels like it outside too, but we're going to try to warm up these discussions as well. As we talked about this before the break, and I want to kind of continue this conversation as well. What is the solution to the lack of high school officiating? And we talked about it, and we looked at both sides of the coin, of course, right? I mean, there's obviously, and we've seen the social media post of criticisms, I guess is the best word to describe the criticisms towards high school officiating and just high school officials, referees, umpires, things of that nature. Does that play the factor into the lack of high school officiating, or is it just because there's, companies are struggling to have people work everywhere right now? That's not anything new. There's a lot of lack of jobs for companies. Well, not a lack of jobs, I should say. Flip that. A surplus of jobs that companies are trying to get people to fill in positions that they can't get filled. So is that just the same trend that we're seeing for the high school officiating, or is it something more? We obviously see the discussion swirling on the social media side of things, and we see high school officials all the time too talking about it and talking about their experiences. So I just posed the question to you then. What is the solution to the lack of high school officiating? Looking at it, I don't know if there is one solidified answer. I don't know if there is a way you can one move completely correct all of it. It has to start with a one, right? It has to start with the official. You have to get people to want to officiate high school, right? There has to be a desire to do it, because it's often not for money's sake. Let's be honest too. I mean, I believe they make decent money. I don't know the exact amount on what they make per game and how that whole breakdown goes, but they're not making an entire wage off of this. They're not making their livelihoods off of this. So it's definitely, you don't think it's a money aspect, right? So there has to be a want to it. And obviously the initial want for a lot of officials is just to be around sports, just to get closer to the game, you would think, in some way. See area athletes and just experience sports in almost a different realm as you're working the sport. You're falling in love with the sport in a different way, in a different realm. So there's that want to actually go in and be a high school official. I think the problem starts with that there's no longer the want to become a high school official, just because of the stigma and the picture that pops in a lot of people's heads nowadays that comes with being a high school official. And you think about that. Think about the number of games that you might have attended. Think about the number of games in the high school realm, obviously, that you might have attended, that you might have worked, that you might have participated in, that you might have been cheering for your kids in the stand, that you might have been the kid playing basketball in if you're watching. Talk about all those times and talk about how many of those games do you recall high school officials getting criticized. Now, whether it's just or unjust, because let's be fair, there are some bad officiating out there. There's bad officials. There's some bad calls that we've seen, and there are a few bad apples in the bunch. There's no doubt about that. But talking about that, how many times or how often does high school officials get criticized throughout the game, and how many games have you seen high school officials get criticized? Because it's so easy to, again, remember, point out, and give crap to the ones that are bad, and if there's a call that's missed, but you don't credit the officials that are doing a good job too and doing their best. And I've said this on the show with Anthony before, and I think it comes back to this, right? In the same way, we watch the professional sports realm, right? And we look at these athletes, these phenomenal athletes that are able to make phenomenal plays. They, of course, still make mistakes, right? Everybody makes mistakes. They still NFL world drop passes. They still make errors in the baseball field in the major league level. They still miss shots and air ball in the NBA level, right? That all happens. We would certainly, and it's scary because it feels like we're starting, but you would think you don't ever compare the high school realm to the professional realm. You don't expect the same level of talent from high school stars as you do the NBA stars or the MLB stars or the NFL stars, right? You don't watch the product on that field expecting to see the same type of stuff on that field. It's too raw of talent, and usually you don't see transitions that quick. Very few go from high school right into professionals, but you don't usually expect that from your high school athletes, right? So why is it we expect the same perfection from the NFL, the NBA, the MLB referees as we do the high school referees? Why do we have that carry over? Because you don't think, and even though I see a little bit of a scary trend with it, and I hope it certainly doesn't trend like that, but you don't usually see anybody compare the pro stars to the high school stars. So why do we expect the same thing from officiating? And it's an interesting topic of discussion too, because even the pro officials make their mistakes. Even they have their bad calls. Your NBA stars, your NFL, your MLB stars, they all make bad calls too, even at the pro levels officiating. There's even jokes going around about how bad some of the officials are. But why do we expect pro level talent from officiating from local high school, usually guys that are not volunteering their time, but dedicating a decent amount of their time for not the greatest money in the world, let's be honest, to just be a contributor to the game in some form or fashion because they wanted to be closer to the game. Because again, it goes back to that want. What was the want to be a official in the first place, right? And looking at those professional officials and looking at how they're able to do it, how much schooling, how much training, how many games they had to call to get to that point and get to the level that they're at, to where they're able to be professional officials at that level. And it takes a lot to get to that level. And expecting that same from officials in this area is just, it's ludicrous in my opinion. You can't expect the same type of officiating that you see in the professional realm from local high school officials. It's not fair to high school officials because you got to expect mistakes are going to be made. And of course you try to correct it, and that's why you have multiple officials on the floor. And you know what? Oftentimes in the games that I've called and the games that I have seen, I've seen a lot of times, often officials will convene and they will make the right call from what is seen from the stands too. Because again, you got to remember, you have a better view oftentimes from the stands. You could see a decent amount from there, but you don't always have the best view necessarily. So when you have all those officials and they convene, they oftentimes make the best call too. And I've seen that time and time again in the high school realm. Getting a comment on here too. Local officials don't get paid enough to be harassed by parents. These high school players are not getting paid or playing in World Series or World Champions. Parents and players need to behave and treat the games as such. And right, I think it goes back to just respecting the game in that manner too. And just respecting the fact that everybody involved is there for a reason, and they're there for a want. There's always that want that's involved. Your kids are there because they want to play the sport. They want to be involved with the sport. You want to see your kids involved. You want to see your kids succeed, obviously. There's that same want to be involved in the sport, be a contributor to the sport that the high school officials and officials throughout the world have too. So I'm just looking at that too, and I pose that question again to you. We'll bring it up again later in the show, but we'll close this right now as we'll get into Anthony Hartwig's interview a little bit. But what is the solution to the lack of high school officiating? Let me know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We'll continue this discussion in a little bit. But like I said, we do have a softball interview that was pre-recorded with Anthony Hartwig today. Or not today, well, previously, but we're going to be premiering it today. And it was also released earlier on ysnlive.com. That's where you can find all the stories and interviews. They will drop there always on the website first, too, as I believe a trio of interviews dropped. We're going to be airing them throughout the week, too, but we don't want to give you too much of the cake in one serving, too, just a small slice a day here. As the first interview we have is Anthony Hartwig with Skylar Greenheisen, too, and you can find the article, again, attached to it at ysnlive.com. The sky's the limit. As the co-host here of Running Point, you'll still hear his voice as he's living it up down in Georgia, but here is, nonetheless, Anthony Hartwig's interview with Skylar Greenheisen.
Anthony Hartwig here with a West Branch softball player profile. I'm joined by senior Skylar Greenheisen. Skylar, thank you so much for taking the chance to join us today.
Thank you for having me.
Here it is, your senior season. It's here. What's it kind of like putting on this uniform and kind of knowing that every time you do something, it's for the last time you do it?
Honestly, it's not a lot of pressure. I wouldn't say that, because I'm trying to have fun this year, and I know it's my senior season, so there's a lot of pressure on us to be this great role model and everything else. Well, honestly, overall, it's just fun, and I'm just having a good time with it.
You talk about being a role model and being leaders. I mean, you look at the roster, it's a chunk of seniors, kind of a chunk of freshmen, and not a lot in between. You guys get to really be leaders to these young girls. What's it been like gelling the youth of this team with you guys as the senior class?
Well, honestly, I'm very used to having freshmen and everything else, because my sister's obviously a freshman. So I've been around a lot of them my whole entire life. So I mean, it's nothing really new to me. And Sydney, obviously, she's one of my best friends. So she's been there around us, them our whole lives. And I don't know, it's honestly not that big of a challenge, but at the same time it is, because we're very different in ages and everything else. So, I mean, it's a task, of course, but like anything else, you just overcome it.
And you talk about your sister. We had a chance to talk to her too, a great player profile that you'll also be able to find on ysnlive.com. But, we asked her, what's the dynamic like from her perspective? So we're going to ask the same thing to you. What's kind of like sharing the field with Reagan, and how blessed are you to kind of have this 1 year with your sister?
Well, okay, well, first off, well, we had volleyball together, and that was a task itself because I love my sister to death, but we definitely butt heads sometimes. We're very like two different people. I'm more like headstrong, and she's very headstrong herself. So, it's definitely a task to work with her, but I love playing with her. It's definitely like a great opportunity, especially because like I don't know, we love each other very much dearly, and I think we push each other so hard because we love each other. But sometimes we we might argue sometimes, but it's really just because we want the best for each other, if that makes any sense.
All right, we asked Reagan this. We have to be fair and get both sides. What's the one thing Reagan does that really she knows how to get under your skin and really just kind of is one of those hot button, easily to set you off?
Yeah, well, because she's my sister, she doesn't really like to listen to me. Like, she doesn't really listen to me that well because, like, she thinks I'm, like, looking at her in a sister point of view, and I really try to look at her as in a teammate. But sometimes it's really hard because obviously I'm more hard on her because I know, like, I'm not gonna get yelled at. I mean, like, she does yell at me, but, like, it's like I don't know. It's hard to cooperate with her, but I don't like I try to not look at her as a sister when I'm playing with her, but it's kind of hard because like at the end of the day we all come home and we see each other and obviously then we nitpick at each other. But she definitely does this one thing with like she has like these ticks. Like whenever she like gets mad or frustrated, she like does this thing with her eyebrows and like I only notice certain things, so like she'll squeeze her hands or like raise her eyebrows, and that's like one thing that jerks my nerve because like I know when she's mad or like annoyed with me, and like only I can tell.
Her answer, full disclosure, was when you take her stuff. So I don't know
Oh
if you have a rebuttal
yes,
for that.
I'm not even gonna lie. I take her stuff all the time. I don't know why I do it, but I just do.
All in good jest. The opposite side, obviously. What's your favorite thing about being able to share the court in the field with your sister and to be able to have, like we said before, this 1 year where you guys get to play together?
Honestly, she's brutally honest. I'll give her that. She's very brutally honest. And I don't know, like sometimes you need somebody in your life to just be brutally honest with you. And like Reagan is definitely that person. Like she tells me when I just need to stop talking or when I need to like step it up a little bit or do something different. So I guess that's definitely one thing that I would say.
Let's talk about this senior class and the people that you've kind of been playing with for so long. What's it kind of like to kind of have this final hurrah with such a great group of girls and to be able to have a really strong relationship with your fellow seniors?
Honestly, out of the past 4 years, like we've all been playing, this is 100% like the best team. Like I think bonding wise. So like we all get along very well, and that's like probably one of the best things I would say in our senior class. We all like intermix very well with our like emotions and everything else. We're brutally honest to everyone, which helps a lot because sometimes you just need to like hear it, and we all just don't care enough to not hide it. So we all just share how we feel, and that's probably the best part.
Last year, you guys got so close to the ultimate goal. You were right there, fell just short. How hungry has the way the last season ended made these players that returned from last year's team?
Well, like you said earlier, there's a lot of like new people to the team, and it's like I mean, there's only one person that's in the same position as last year, so there's a lot of fresh blood and everything else. So we're very eager to get out there and be better than we were last year, and every day is like we're determined to be better and get better.
What is some of the team goals that you guys have set? Before the season started, you guys made a list that said these are our team goals. What were some of them that you kind of decided on?
Well, obviously, like win every game. That's like a team goal. Like obviously, get better every single day we're there. Bring the energy every single time we play. Bring the energy. Always pass the bat. That's what we say all the time is pass the bat. We like I know last year we had more of like a strikeout. Like our pitchers were more of a strikeout defense, and this year we're like learning to be more of they're gonna hit the ball, so we need to be able to field it and play better. So that's like definitely one thing that we like are determined to work on. That's a goal. Like our defense needs to like be good, spot on. We're gonna hit the ball every game, trying to go win every game. That's just like a main goal.
What about personal goals for you and yourself and things that you want to see yourself accomplish this senior season?
Honestly, be a role model. Like, it's my last year. Just have fun with it. Like, don't hold so much pressure. I know I used to care a ton and it like affected me a lot mentally. And I don't know. This year I'm just trying to have fun with it and be open-minded to everything. I know sometimes I don't always agree with things that people say, but I've learned to like be open-minded, adapt to everything.
And we talk about you being a role model. Now we're going to ask, who were some of your role models when you were growing up in softball and you were going through the journey of your softball career? Who were some people that you looked up to?
Definitely my travel coaches and my parents and my sister, 100%. Those are like my big role models, and even Coach Woods, 100%. Sometimes we butt heads. I'll tell you that. We're both very stubborn people, but she honestly is a good role model. I know we don't always get along sometimes, but like in the end, she's had very high standards for me, and I think that's like a lot to do with everything. That's why I hold myself so like I hold myself to a good high accountability, if you would say. Like, I don't know, definitely my parents though. My parents pushed me a ton, and sometimes it's just nice to come home and be like, there's that one person that just will always be there for you.
Go a little bit deeper into this relationship with Coach Woods and what it's been like to be under her for 4 years. And obviously, it's a coach that has been there, done that, a legend in the softball community.
Yeah.
And you have to really count yourself lucky to be able to be coached by someone that's done it for so long.
Yeah. No, 100%. Coach Woods and me very like we're very like close. I would say we're closer than most people. Like I don't sugarcoat things with her, and I think that has a lot to do with it. Like I like to tell her exactly how I feel, especially like I'm a very emotional person, I'm not gonna lie. Like I like to let it out sometimes. And like with Coach Woods, I don't really hold it back. I kind of just tell her how I feel. And that's like one thing that's very nice, because sometimes like people don't like to open up to their coaches and be like straightforward with them. And for the longest time, I wasn't really like open to being open with her because I thought it would like hurt me or she would like be offended by the things I had to say. But in the long run, I finally opened up to her, and like that has helped our team like immensely. Like we all get along now, and like she knows how to handle things like better for us and everything else. And like sometimes you just need to talk to your coach and let them know how you're feeling, and that's definitely what I do with Coach Woods.
Let's talk about this West Branch community, because you cover every sport. You realize these fans, they travel everywhere for you guys, no matter what the sport is. It's all green in the stands. What's it like playing for West Branch and having this community back you up and being able to represent them as they support you?
Well, like as you said, there's always like green in the stands and everything else. And like I have Facebook and like my mom has Facebook. And a lot of the time I'll just be scrolling through Facebook, and it's really nice to see like all the parents supporting not just their kids, they support everybody. And like you said, the community just always comes together, and that's really nice to know that you have somebody to just to back you up whenever you like need that push or something like that.
You obviously keep yourself very busy. You're a multiple sport athlete. How do you balance everything and keep time management skills as high as you do with all the stuff you got going on in your life?
Well, I mean, if you talk to my mom, my time management skills are not the best. But honestly, I don't know. Like, I try to just like focus on one thing at a time, take it day by day, and like, I don't know. Sometimes it's hard because I do get like worked up with school and everything else, but I just try not to be so like uptight about everything. Go with the flow.
You got any pregame routines that you have to stick to, and if you don't, you're gonna feel like you're off the whole game?
Well, I do pray like a lot. Me and my friend Tori pray a lot during the game and before the game. And even before I'm up to bat, I always look up to the sky and like thank God for everything. That's like mainly what I do, but I don't know. I just thank everybody before like in my head, and I think what I need to do and not be so uptight about everything.
I'm
Just
sure that
relax.
faith. I'm sure that faith might be an answer to this question, but we ask all the softball, and baseball players this because it's such a mentally grueling sport. It's a sport of failure. You have to be able to accept the fact that sometimes results don't go your way. I'm sure you've had moments in your career where you're in a hitting slump or you're not swinging the bat the way you want to. How have you kind of gotten through those mental lapses and those mental woes that this sport is destined to bring you at one point?
Yeah, 100%. At the beginning of the season, I'm not gonna lie, I was definitely in like a mentally challenging, like I was mentally like not okay. I was mentally drained by everything. I put so much pressure on myself to be this person that like you're a senior, you need to be a role model, you're a leader, everyone's looking at you, you need to do good. And like I don't know, I definitely like I mean, there was times I came home crying a lot just because I put so much pressure on myself. And I think, I don't know, sometimes you just need to sit down and tell yourself that it's just a sport. In the end, it's not gonna like it's just a sport. Like I've played it my whole entire life, and that's probably one thing. I've always just been so caught up in it. But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna play it when I'm like 50 years old. So it matters, but in the end, it doesn't matter more than your mental health now.
All right, talk about your future plans and what you plan to do after high school, what colleges you plan to attend, and how you want to kind of see yourself in maybe the next 5 or 10 years.
Well, I applied to Kent State and I got accepted, but I think I'm going to go to Kent Salem, or I don't know, Kent Maine or Kent Salem, but I'm going to try to be a pharmaceutical rep, a pharmaceutical sales rep, so I'm going to major in business. That's the goal.
When you look at your time at West Branch and you reflect, because senior year is the time that you get to reflect, what are some of your favorite memories with this softball program that you've been able to build up over the years?
Definitely my my freshman year, I dressed varsity, and I mean, I didn't play a lot, but I played some, but I definitely got to experience things with the varsity players. Well, we were hitting fruit in the locker room. And I know that doesn't sound very interesting, but we were pitching fruit, and well, coach walked in and saw us pitching fruit, and at the time we were pitching it, somebody hit it as she was walking in, and it literally flew fruit all over the ceiling. And that was definitely one of my greatest memories. It's just like batting fruit in the locker room. Like locker room memories are probably the best memories. And also freshman year, we had like little water guns. And we would like carry them around everywhere. And like one time, coach literally was carrying a water gun and got us all back. Like she got on the bus and just started squirting water everywhere, and like nobody expected it. So that was probably like one of the funniest memories I've had.
That sounds like a great team bonding exercise too, and things that kind of make a team close together. What have been some of your favorite team bonding experiences that you've been able to do with this West Branch softball team?
Well, I actually hosted a team bonding this year, and we like I sat there all in a group and just talked about everything, and like we literally sat there and sung and danced and everything else. And I don't know, that was probably like really fun, because like this is just like you figure we have like very little juniors in our varsity team, so we had a lot of the seniors and freshmen, and we've all grew up together because like all of our sisters, like you have Tori and Clary, who Clary's a freshman also, and then you have me and my sister. So there's 4 right there, and then we've all been best friends throughout like our whole entire lives. So we've all grown up together. We bond very well, so that was probably the best like moment. We just all connected.
All right, Skylar, before we let you go, we like to give all the players that we interview the chance to kind of thank their support system, the people that are there for them all the time, and the people that they feel that they wouldn't be where they are right now without. So I want to give you the chance to kind of thank the people that you would like to thank.
I would definitely like to thank my mom and dad and my sister, because without them, I wouldn't be like holding myself to a higher standard and everything else. I like to thank Coach Woods especially, and then also my travel coaches in the Billy Dome, 100%.
All right, Skylar, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to hear from you and great to get a little bit of insight into this West Branch.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll talk to you again real soon.
That was Anthony Hartwig's interview with Skylar Greeneisen of West Branch Softball, as we were excited to see that. Again, you could go to ysnlive.com to get the article, The Sky's the Limit, with that as well. But without further ado, we previewed it, and here he is, the man, the myth, the legend of YSU baseball himself, Mr. Richie Giuliano, joining me on the show today for the second half of the show. Richie, how we doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day to be on Running Point.
Yeah, it is. No doubt, no doubt. Monday Blues keeps you inside. We'll talk a little bit about these YSU Penguins, though, Richie. As looking at it, too, they ended a 7-game losing streak against Milwaukee, it looks like, winning the series, too. And honestly, despite their record, only they're still in the thick of things, it looks like, in this Horizon League, and still a lot of games left in the conference.
Yeah, you're right. This Horizon League's still wide open, like you said. I mean, there's not a team this year that's undefeated like a Wright State is or a UIC is. So Youngstown State's hanging in that middle of the pack. They got a big weekend coming up against Oakland and Milwaukee, 4 games in 3 days. So that's going to be a big challenge for this program. But they're seeking some revenge against Oakland. They went on the road at Oakland 2 weeks ago, dropped the series 2 out of 3. So definitely they're looking for some revenge against the Oakland Golden Grizzlies on Friday. But, before I kind of preview that, I kind of want to touch on last weekend. Like you said, snapped the 7-game losing streak. Huge, huge wins for these programs because on Friday, it was a battle of the pitching staffs. I mean, 4-2 the final, wasn't many hits. I mean, it was kind of a colder day. The wind was blowing in. And then on Saturday, it was a 17-13 game, a game that almost lasted 4 hours. Youngstown State had 20 hits, but they came on the wrong side of the scoreboard and lost 17-13. One dude hit 3 home runs for Milwaukee. He had 7 RBIs, which was the most by a Panther since like 2003. And he was like 1 RBI away from, having their program record. But, it was such a brutal loss because if you were there, you would see the wind effect. And it was a beautiful day. It was like 70 degrees on Saturday. The wind was flying out. So it was just a hitter's ballpark. And it was crazy. It was like every single inning there was a home run. And it was a fun game. But then, Saturday they came back. They bounced back. Broski pitched a great game. Great to see him get back into his groove. He threw over 7 innings. And then Pat O'Shaughnessy, Braden O'Shaughnessy, and Steve DeSanio were the 3 guys to look out for. And why she was able to come away with a big victory on Saturday to win the series.
And no doubt, Richie, and I believe YSU going on spring break, so they have a little bit of lapse in their games before this next upcoming week. But talk to me about these upcoming double headers, first versus Oakland on Friday, too, and then they're at Milwaukee on Sunday, both in conference games. And, of course, Oakland a little bit ahead of them in these standings right now.
Yeah, they are. Oakland's having one of their best seasons in a very long time. Give credit to Coach Banfield and what he's doing over there with the Golden Grizzlies. They got a really good offensive lineup. They hit about 280 as a team, so they can slug it around. And, the good thing is that they're coming to our place this time because their place is a really small field, plays about 320 down the lines and about 355, I think, in the gap. So not the biggest college baseball field, but when you come to Eastwood Field, it's a different environment. We've seen some teams struggle at Eastwood offensively and defensively. I think defensively has been the biggest trouble for teams that come to play at Eastwood because not a lot of teams nowadays are used to playing on a true grass and dirt surface. We saw a shortstop last year from Wright State who had a lot of trouble on the infield dirt. So that's always a home field advantage for YSU. And as we know, last year they won 19 games at home, which was a program record. So this team, just usually plays better at home. So that's good that Oakland comes here on Friday. They got a guy in Brad Goulet who's hitting about 350 this season. Brandon Nye is another guy for them that's really good. I think our pitching matchups are better than theirs, but, offensively, when they're putting up 10, 11 runs a game, you're not going to win too many games against us. So I think the key to Friday's doubleheader for sure, you got to hold them to under 5 runs for us to have a chance. But then when you look at Sunday, that's the most difficult part of the schedule because the way the schedule shakes up, and it's kind of interesting, we play Friday doubleheader at home. You get on the bus on Saturday, and you travel about 9 to 10 hours on Saturday to Milwaukee, and you're only playing one day, right? You're only playing a Sunday doubleheader, and then after that game's over, we travel 9, 10 hours back and come back to Youngstown, and then you play Niagara on Tuesday and Wright State on Friday, but that's way ahead of the schedule, but, just letting the fans know. So it's going to be very difficult for YSU mentally and physically on Sunday. So I think Friday is the biggest because you're at home, you're well rested, like you mentioned. There's no games during the midweek for the first time in like 8 or 9 weeks since the season started. So this team's going to be ready to go on Friday, re-energized. But Sunday is really going to be a difficult challenge when you look at the traveling and everything involved outside of the baseball field.
Richie, talking about this too, we look at YSU's record, and I mean, you wouldn't think that they'd be in the thick of it, but I mean, looking at this too, only 3 games back of the top spot in this Horizon League, and still 18 games left inside the Horizon League, 9 home, 9 away. And still, I think the biggest key, 5 games with number 1 Wright State right now.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, they play Wright State, not this weekend, but next weekend. So that's a pivotal series during this season. But you're right. I mean, this league is just wide open this year. I mean, we've seen some crazy things. Purdue Fort Wayne, they swept Milwaukee at home at their place last weekend. Then they beat another team in the series 2 out of 3. So, this year's all been about who is the best team during that weekend, really. I mean, there's not that one team that's got that great arm last year, like Youngstown State had a Colin Floyd, a guy that was going to give you a win every single game during the weekend series. And it's also different, too, because now we're playing 3 at home and then 2 away places or the opposite. So it's a lot different than playing 1 4-game series throughout the weekend where you might not have a great weekend. And just like that, you lost 3 out of the 4. So, I mean, you put things in perspective. Teams now have 1 or 2 good pitchers, and they could guide you through the weekend. Last year, when a 4-game series in 3 days, if you didn't have pitching, you were in a lot of trouble, obviously. So I think that's where everything balances out because there's some really good pitchers in this league this year, and that's helping with these 3-game series and, making this league so balanced as it is.
Talking about this too, Richie, I just want to get your opinion because you were able to see a lot of these games up close and personal. These out-of-conference games, out-of-division games, I should say, with playing teams such as your Michigan State, your Penn State, your Ohio States, not to mention still got Michigan still coming up on the schedule too. Have you seen the playing and the level of competition that YSU has? Have you seen improvements on the field from the players' standpoint inside conference play now because of these non-conference games?
100%. The bats are really starting to heat up. I mean, when you look at the weekend, I mean, they put up some really good numbers. I mean, when you look at it, they scored 13 runs on Friday and they scored 15 runs on Saturday. So the offense is definitely improving. This was a team that got shut out 3 times in non-conference play, kind of struggling to get runs across. They left a lot of guys in scoring position, but man, this offense has done a great job in conference play, especially this past weekend against Milwaukee, where they were putting up some insane numbers. And, talking to Eric Bonnell, who's the hitting coach, talking to head coach Dan Bertolini, he knew that this offense was going to break out at some point. They had too many talented hitters and too many good guys on their team to be in this long of a slump. So I think the offense is there, and I think it's going to stay there as this season goes on. And that's the biggest improvement I've seen from non-conference play to when you were playing at West Virginia and struggling to get 2 runs across. In Ohio State, where you had to hit a triple to take the lead in the 10th inning, make it just 3-2 with only 5 runs. Penn State, when we won 2-1, you only had 5 hits in that ball game, but we're able to get 2 runs because of pass balls and other things like that, situational wise. So offensively, I think this team has improved a lot, just like what we expected.
Talking about some specific players too, who have been some standouts that you've seen on this Penguins roster that have kind of broken through the ceiling the last couple of weeks too, and have really stood out.
Yeah, I mean, you got to start with Braden O'Shaughnessy. I mean, this guy was a preseason All-Horizon League selection to be a third baseman, but he's played everywhere. He's played at second. He's played at third as well. This guy has just really been unstoppable in the last couple of weeks. He's hitting .355 now. He had 3 home runs last week, 1 against Niagara and 2 against Milwaukee. Put over 6 RBIs in the weekend series. And, I mean, when you throw this guy a fastball, it's almost a guaranteed hit at this point. Something that Northern Kentucky did really well 2 weekends ago is threw him off speed. And, he had a little trouble with that. But this weekend, man, did he just crushed the seams off the baseball. And then his brother and Pat, another guy who was really starting to heat up this weekend, he had 2 4 RBI games on Friday and Saturday with 5 hits each. A guy that was really clutch. He knocked in a huge 2 RBI single with the bases loaded to really get the ball rolling on Friday. Unfortunately, they dropped that one 17-13. But, I think that's one thing that kind of sparked this offense in the 2-day stretch. So that's a guy that's coming along. And then the last guy I'm going to touch on the offensive side is Steve DeSanio. DeSanio this weekend was 1 hit away. He was 6 for 6 on Friday. He was 1 hit away from breaking the program record for hits in a game, which would have been 7. He was unstoppable at the plate, added 3 more hits on Saturday because it was a Thursday through Saturday series because of Easter on Sunday. So DeSanio, another guy that's risen his average all the way up close to 300. He was a guy that was hitting low 200s at the beginning of the month, but after an incredible weekend where he had over 10 hits at the plate, he's almost up to 300. So those are kind of the three guys that hit top 5 in the lineup and the guys that you need to produce from an offensive perspective. So great to see those guys getting going. But I think Braden O'Shaughnessy, back to him, has a chance to be a first-team All-Horizon League selection this season if he continues to swing it the way he does.
All right, Richie, final question for you on the YSU baseball topic, and then we can move on to the other topics in the show. But just looking forward, we talked about still a lot of season left, still a lot of conference games left. Even though YSU's down in the standings, still only 3 games within top seeded Wright State in the division. What, in your personal opinion, what do you think it's going to take from the Penguins to get a piece of this Horizon League crown?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the pitching, to be honest with you. I mean, I mentioned the hitting is starting to grow. They've had some really good hitting performances this past season, but I think the pitching is going to be a pivotal point in this team making a run towards the postseason. John Snyder's a guy who's going to miss this weekend. He hasn't been feeling good with his arm, so the Penguins have a couple other injuries, so they're going to rely on some freshmen like Lane Rhodes, a guy that we covered last year and was one of our YSN players of the year. So he's going to step in probably to a starting role at some point if there's a 4-game stretch like this weekend. Matt Broski is going to continue to have to throw well. Chad Cole's a guy that's been in and out of the bullpen. He's also had 5 starts for YSU. He's probably going to get more starting time. And then Travis Perry, a guy who's really pitched it well the last couple of outings, but he's had that just one bad inning where things have kind of escalated and gotten away. But overall, Perry's changeup and his off speed looks a lot better than from the beginning of the season. And I was able to talk to him off the field, and he's feeling more confident about himself. So that's a good sign for YSU as well. But overall, it's going to have to be the starting pitching that's going to have to make an adjustment, and they're going to have to throw the ball better because, like you mentioned, you're facing Wright State 5 times, and that's one of the best offenses in this league. You got to play UIC 5 times as well. That's another great offense. So the pitching is going to have to be there, or else it's going to be a long stretch.
As we look forward to the YSU Penguins season, Richie Giuliano will be on coverage with them too. Like we said, still 18 conference games left, and they are still well within the thick of it. Want to go into the basketball world real quickly and congratulate a couple of YSN players and being selected to play in the OHSBCA D3, D4 North-South boys game. Both Jonathan Berdovich of Heartland Christian and Kevin Moore of Campbell Memorial being selected on the north side of things. So we want to congratulate both of those basketball talents. We saw them highlighted in the YSN Basketball All-Star game as well. And what can you say, Richie? Just a couple of really just talented guys in this area.
I mean, Berdovich is a guy that could drop 50 in a game if he wants. And then Kevin Moore's just got that explosive ability. You were able to cover them a lot. I mean, he just doesn't look like a high school basketball player. He looks like you're watching a college player. Just the way he moves, ball handling skills, just awareness on the floor. Just an overall great player and a guy that could bring a lot of energy in the gymnasium when he throws it down with one hand. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no doubt. And we also want to congratulate Sydney Seaman for continuing her softball career. She signed to Malone University, too. So I wish a congratulations to her on that, too. All that can be found, again, on our social media pages. Find it at YSN on our Facebook, Twitter, and then you can find us on ysnlive.com. But, Richie, I wanted to bring this topic up with you because I brought it up to the fans and just bringing this discussion up. And we looked at kind of both sides of the coin with this on high school officiating because we know there's kind of a surplus of jobs everywhere. There's a lot of companies struggling to get people into work. So is the lack of high school officiating, do you think it's due to that or do you think it's due to something more? We've seen parents in the stands getting a little ridiculous. We've seen the social media post. What do you think the solution to the lack of high school officiating is if we pose that question to you? In your opinion, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's one single solution that you can make up for the lack of officiating. I know a lot of high school officials. I know a lot of officials that umpire at Scene Park. Of course, Shane Davis, who was the YSU pitching coach, him and his dad are down there at Scene Park, and there's different reasons why they like to ump. Of course, for him, probably recruiting, and he gets paid to go out and ump the game of baseball. But I think a challenge for a lot of these umpires and officials is that it's a part-time gig, to be honest with you. I think it's very difficult to get so many games per week, especially around the spring season, because you and I know, I mean, these games start at 5 o'clock, 4 or 5 o'clock. A lot of these guys are like, well, I'm working until 5 o'clock, so I can't get there in time to umpire this game. And that's why you see a lot of older generation umpires, because they're retired and, you know, they don't have anything to do. So they like to do it, and it's fun, and they get to be around the game. So that's one solution. That's, I'd say, one thing that is the reason that the officiating just is continuing to decrease, not just around the Valley, but around the country. Another one is it's so, I want to say, like, it's such a high demand to be an official now, right? I mean, there's just so much asked of you. And I think a lot of people don't put in perspective like how difficult their job actually is. And a lot of these guys aren't professional umpires. You know, I mean, they're doing it for fun, and they take the class and they're certified. Don't get me wrong. They know what they're talking about. But at the end of the day, they don't have as much experience and as much time on the job as major league umpires and major league officials, whether that be, you know, on the basketball side, baseball side, softball, whatever, football. And I think the last problem is everybody uses officials as scapegoats, right? If you're not playing well, you know, the umpire is expanding his zone to the outside corner and he's calling strikes. Well, he's probably doing it for the other team as well. So you have to make in-game adjustments. And I think umpires are always scapegoats in that particular reason where, you know, our team's not playing well. The officials were horrible. We had 9 fouls and they had only 3 fouls. So therefore, you know, we shouldn't have lost this game, yada, yada, yada. And I love when people always come down to that final play too. I can't believe he or she called that foul in the final minute. Well, you don't get to that point unless it's a tie game, you know? So, I mean, there's other things you could have done throughout the 30 minutes to where it shouldn't have been this way, right? So, yeah, I think, one, it's such high demand and there's so much pressure on these officials, and it's just uncalled for because I don't think a lot of people realize how hard these jobs actually are.
What I said too earlier in the show, and I mean I pose it to you as well, with the kids in our high school realm too, and the high school level athletes, we certainly never expect professional level athletic performances from our athletes on the high school football field, the basketball court, baseball field, what have you, softball field, whatever. We talk about that, but why does it feel like that doesn't translate for the officials? And you brought it up too, and I brought it up earlier in the show as well, because it feels like when we go to games too, and I feel like everyone's somewhat guilty of it at some point in their life too, expecting professional level performances out of the officials that are there, that are the same as almost like your high school level kids. They have high school experience, and they're doing it, like I said before, because there was that want. They want to be closer to the game, and that you have to have that want, I feel like, fulfilled to make people want to be an umpire, because it's not for the money. It's not for the money that they're doing it. There needs to be that want to do it, and I feel like a lot less want to do it because of the stigma and the picture that we all get in our heads when you think about what comes with officiating now, because of what you have to deal with.
And I think at least one person has been to a sporting event. You know, everybody has been to at least one sporting event in their life to where they could sit down in the stands and probably vividly remember the words that have been said to an official or an umpire. And like you mentioned, it's the stigma. If you're entering a job field, right? I mean, say you want to become a doctor. Doctors are known to make a lot of money. Therefore, a lot of people want to be a doctor. Umpires and officials are known to get bad words said against them. Who wants to be an umpire when the stigma against them is they're always wrong, right? I mean, no matter what they do, in people's minds, they are always wrong, right? Whether it be against their kid, against their team, whatever it may be, they're always wrong. And who wants to be wrong in this world? Nobody. So, I mean, why would you want to become an official?
Yeah, and I mean, it's certainly a topic of discussion that is going to be able to be carried on to later dates too. But certainly, it's an issue that we're seeing, like you said, not only around the Valley but around the country, is just lack of officiating. And I feel like you said, there's not one solution. I feel like that you could kind of just say, okay, here it is, everything's fixed now. But I definitely think one of those things is you got to get that want to be fulfilled again. You got to get people to want to be officials again, and usually that starts with them just wanting to be closer to the game.
Yeah.
But if there's a blockade or a barrier that's preventing them from wanting to be closer to the game, and that's the form of the ridicule that they have to face, then maybe there's something that we need to do ourselves too when we go into stands, and the way we treat officials and we treat high school level games. Speaking, though, of high school level games, we have some other topics of discussion. Before we get to our picks, I talked about it earlier. We'll talk about some teams that we can think can potentially dethrone our number one ranked, power ranked teams in both the baseball and softball realm, as well as Richie and I got to make picks for all the games that are still slated for tonight. We'll see if it's happening. I don't know if I'm seeing rain or snow going on outside. It's pretty wild going out. But
what's nice is a lot of the teams are down south in Myrtle Beach. I mean,
yeah,
Campbell's down there right now. They play today. So, I mean, the weather's probably 85 degrees and sunny, but I don't think any teams are going to have a chance to play here in the Mahoning Valley today.
Yeah, we'll see, but we'll talk about those games too. We'll pick them until they get canceled, but we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about some other teams that might be able to dethrone these number one ranked, power ranked teams. All that is coming up and more as we'll take our next break here on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
Every customer has a story, and at Greenwood Chevrolet, we are committed to making sure it ends with you in the right vehicle. I get to be part of somebody's adventure, whether it's buying a car for the first time, helping them get approved, or finding the perfect car for their budget. I'm proud that people trust me with their finances. They trust me to take care of them, and they trust me with their story. I'm Tracy, and I'm ready to go the extra mile for you, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Working with your family can be stressful at times, but because they're family, you know that you're going to get a loving, honest answer, even when things don't make sense to any problem. Dealing with Medicare can be confusing and overwhelming. That's why here at Myers Family Insurance, we do our best to give you honest and caring answers to all of your questions. Family, like Medicare, isn't always perfect, but when you put others first, the results can be amazing.
For all your Medicare needs, call Myers Family Insurance.
It's storm season.
I think we're under the gun for some heavy storms over the next couple of hours.
And Storm Tracker 21 is ready.
This is probably the one we're keeping a closer eye on.
On air.
And locally, we're going to have a lot of eyes on our area.
Online.
All right, let's talk high-risk futurecast and the timing of this weather.
On social media and on our app.
Notice we'll have scattered showers on Thursday.
Stay ready with Storm Tracker 21.
The severe weather threat now through around sunset this evening.
Hi, this is Tommy Clem, owner of WRS Insurance Solutions.
WRS Insurance Solutions is a local independent agency that specializes in life, Medicare, long-term care, and disability products. Call us at 330-953-3722 or visit us at wrsinsuranceSolutions.com to learn more.
Good luck to all the student athletes in the Valley.
Welcome back to Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Ty Bartell, joined alongside Richie Giuliano here in the second half of this show, Monday edition of Running Point. And we talked a little bit about YSU baseball. We talked a little bit about the high school officiating, or lack thereof, high school officiating in the area. But now to talk about the upcoming baseball and just high school baseball in general and some of these power ranked teams. And Richie, I talked about it a little bit earlier, and we'll go into these power rankings another time too. We'll start with the softball rank. These are, of course, last week's power rankings. We still wait for this week's to drop. I believe that comes on Tuesday. You stay tuned to our socials for that. But looking at it, the question I posed to everyone in the comments too, and to everyone that follows us here at YSN, who makes the best case, if any, to dethrone our number one ranked power ranked teams? And of course, Fitch right now sitting at 10-0, playing some tough competition, and I mean, just looking very strong to start. But I said I gave a couple of candidates that could potentially dethrone number one seeded Fitch. Richie, I gotta say, ask the same question to you. Looking at this list, and maybe some teams that are not on this list, who do you think has the potential to dethrone number one Fitch?
Probably South Range. I mean, when you look at it, I think they just got ranked number 3 right now in the state in the coaches poll. So, I mean, they put up a really impressive weekend in Myrtle Beach, of course, being able to watch some of those games with DJ on the call, who made the trip down there. So South Range, of course. And then we just had an interview with the West Branch and their players. So I think West Branch is really solid. Of course, we saw what they did to their rival and Salem. I picked that game a while back on the wrong side, and I probably made one of the worst picks I've had in my career. So, I mean, I can't doubt the West Branch, the Raiders now. So I'm probably going to go with West Branch and South Range. I think Ursuline's really good, but it's going to be tough because you get to see him every day. It's Fitch. I mean, they got a freshman that is unbelievable on the mound, and they're so talented as well. They got a great balance of some upperclassmen, and then you got a freshman pitcher who's probably one of the best in the state already. So, yeah, it's going to be very difficult to take down Austintown Fitch. But, I mean, when you got West Branch and South Range, who historically have been really good programs, I think those two teams have the best chance to catch up.
Yeah, Sydney Watts, no doubt top wattage. She is electric for the Falcons. We coined her the untouchable Sydney Watts, and in that circle, she has been dominant for Fitch. But I mean, I say the same. I said the same initially too. I think South Range makes a case. I think Champion always is looming just because of the amount of championships that they've been able to garner over there too with Coach Weaver. You always got to keep them in discussion. West Branch is an interesting topic too. It's just interesting with Ursuline, South Range, Champion. All these teams are going to have to play each other in the tournament. So at some point in that division, these teams are going to all have to cross paths, you would think, especially for this region.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, that's the beauty of, Mahoning Valley softball is that everybody's going to have to play each other at least once. And, even if they're not in the same region, you try and get them on the schedule, right? I mean, when you look at a lot of the teams that are in the NE8 and they're in the top 10 as well, Poland, Hubbard, you try and schedule those teams like West Branch and South Range. I mean, even if they're down a division or two, just because you know that you're going to get great competition and it's going to be a great softball game. And you want to prepare your team towards the end of the season to where, okay, we faced this caliber of pitching like a Watts, or we've faced this type of offense like Austintown Fitch has had, or South Range has had, or West Branch. So, I mean, even if they're not in the same division and they're not in the same district, you're probably going to see a lot of these top 10 teams in our power rankings match up at some point during the season.
Yep, and don't forget, again, these are last week's power rankings. We still wait till Tuesday for the new power rankings to drop. Usually it's on Tuesday. Sometimes I believe it dropped on Monday night, but usually I think we look to Tuesday for our power rankings to drop. Stay tuned, of course, to our social media for that. But we'll go into the last week power rankings, too, as we wait for next week's to drop in the boys' side of things, too. And I got to pose the same question to you, Richie, because I feel like it's the same thing with Canfield as it is for Fitch. Going to be so tough to dethrone them, but if there is a team to make a case, I mean, we already saw Ursuline. We thought was making a tough case, and they dropped back-to-back games to Lakeview and Columbiana. So they're probably on their way down this list a little bit. But who are some teams, if any, do you think that have the best resume to maybe dethrone Canfield at number one?
Yeah, I think the obvious pick already is Boardman because they already beat Canfield at the top. So I think it's Boardman, and like you said, although South Range or Ursuline's kind of had a tough stretch here in the last 2 days, I still think they're really talented. I mean, you got the USF commit and Brady Shannon, a guy that's hitting like 375 already, and then you got Bako and Ricciuti are two really talented kids that have grown throughout this program. I know Luca Ricciuti was a guy that was starting as a freshman, so very talented player that's hitting over 400 this year for Ursuline, and they got a great offense as well, but under a new head coach is going to take some time to get used to. So, I mean, that's going to be a very intriguing matchup. Canfield and Ursuline play the final game of the regular season before the district tournament. So that's going to be very intriguing to see what happens there. And then South Range, of course, historically, they're a great program. And then we've both gotten to cover Austintown Fitch. When you get a guy like Jake Corral on the mound or a Joe Roth, anything could happen in that particular game, especially when Roth is putting up strikeout numbers like he has this season. He's got a great slider to add with a fastball. So I think those are kind of the three teams in my mind right now. Columbiana's another team that's been showing great signs over the last week. I know the Clippers, I believe they've won like 7 in a row. I think they're 7-0 to start the season on the baseball side, and they got Latonia coming up tomorrow. And the way that Columbiana has put up runs, it's been insane. They scored 27 against Southern at one point. They scored 14 against them the next game. So that's another team kind of on the radar right now, and they're still undefeated.
Yeah, they're on the rise, and I think it's actually 9-0 what their record is up to now. So they're still rolling along. Yeah, I expect them to be in the rankings again. Richie, you being close with the Canfield program and just knowing what the Cardinals have talent-wise and just being able to call games with them, talk to me a little bit because, I mean, for anyone that might be a little bit confused as to why Canfield, with a couple of losses, is still being ranked number one and still being touted as the one of the best, if not the best team in our YSN coverage map. Talk to me just a little bit about why the couple of losses they're allowed that kind of leeway with the type of schedule that they play.
Yeah, I mean, the schedule, obviously. I mean, unfortunately, the Salem and Canfield rematch was canceled in the first game of the season. They're going to make that up at some point. But I mean, when you look at their schedule, it's unbelievable. They have only played 2 teams that are in the Mahoning Valley so far, and that's Howland and Boardman. And Boardman beat them 3-2 in that 8-inning performance. That was a terrific game. And then Canfield was able to sweep Howland 9-5 and 11-0. But I mean, when you look at their schedule, these are the best teams in the state of Ohio. Obviously, you have a very well-known St. Edward's team that they played. Archbishop Hoban, a team that they blanked 8-0. They won the state championship last year. So, I mean, that's a huge victory for the program. Erie Cathedral Prep, they brought them in out of the state. They're from Pennsylvania. Historically, they are one of the best baseball programs in the state of PA, and they beat them 12-2 as well. So they do have the 2 losses against Boardman, which Boardman's a really good squad this year. You can't take anything against them and what Coach Gabriel has done over there. And then Walsh Jesuit, who is historically another great program in Division II baseball. I mean, even when I was playing in high school, when we played them, they were still one of the best teams in the state. So, I mean, when you look at their schedule up and down, and they've played in these PBR Prep Classic tournaments, which brings in some of the best talent in the state. They're playing right now in Myrtle Beach, and they're playing, I believe, 2 teams from New Jersey, a team from New York that's really talented, and then another team, I think from North or South Carolina. I can't quite remember. But just a really tough schedule. And, yeah, they have 2 losses. But, I mean, you've beaten St. Ed's, you've beaten Archbishop Hoban, you've beaten Erie Cathedral Prep. I mean, it kind of weighs out, you know.
No doubt, no doubt. And I mean, looking at their schedule, there's no doubt they're playing some of the best teams in the state, and they have some of the best talent in the state too. I mean, no doubt that this team and the players on this team are absolutely phenomenal. But I actually want to go to the coaching real quick. And for those of you who don't know, Gary Niddle being the color commentator for Richie for a lot of the Canfield football games this season too. So you got a chance to be really close with Coach Niddle. How impactful do you think Coach Niddle's presence is to these guys on this team? And taking them as far as they have in that undefeated regular season last year and just getting them, trying to get them to that next level, that next tier of championship baseball.
Well, I think a lot of people don't know as well that he was my JV coach for 2 years as well when I played at Canfield. So I've known Coach Niddle for a very long time since he came over from Liberty. And, you know, him and I have obviously grown as a relationship standpoint when, you know, we're calling games on the football side. We're spending nights together as well after the game. So Coach Niddle is one of my friends as well, a guy that calls me. We just talk and, you know, talk about baseball, talk about whatever, talk about his team. So, yeah, I mean, Coach Niddle, he's just a leader, right? I mean, he's a great guy, a great coach, and just a guy that you could go to at any time. And I think he has that open relationship with his players, and the guys love to play for him. He's so laid back, right? I mean, if you go to a game and it's a close game, you'll still see him messing around. And, you know, he realizes it's baseball. You know, you got to have fun, right? You got to have fun with these guys. So, you know, I think he lets his coaching staff as well work one-on-one with these guys. And I think that's very important because he's got such a great coaching staff. When you look at everybody around him, Coach Weimer came from Ursuline. Coach Avrilla, a guy who played at Youngstown State and was a heck of a ball player during his era in college baseball. So, I mean, he lets his guys do their job. I mean, a lot of managers kind of get selfish and they want to teach guys one-on-one and what they think and then let their assistants do all the other stuff. It's not the case at Canfield with Coach Niddle. He lets his coaching staff do what they are meant to do, and that's why they are so successful in the past 2 years.
We got to talk about this conference too, this AAC conference, and you and I have had discussions too internally about this conference being potentially, if not one of the toughest in the entire state, because we know how tough our region is in the state anyway. But we talk about power ranked teams, Canfield, Boardman, Fitch all making an appearance. Howland also is another team that you got to argue on the outside looking in. I mean, they threw a no-hitter. Brady Adams and Evan McBain combined no-hitter against Struthers, 13-0 victory. You got a chance to see too. I mean, you've seen Howland's teams before. Howland always has a solid baseball program too, and they're not a pushover in this conference by any means.
No, they got good players. I mean, they got Masucci, who come over from basketball. Gebhart, Youngstown State committed guy that could throw it, a southpaw. But when I saw him play Canfield, it was that I think it was like a Wednesday where they played and it was pouring down rain. The game only went 3 innings, so you couldn't really get a good judge on the talent, of course, with the playing conditions. And then they canceled it and moved it 2 days later. And then I was on the road with the baseball team, so I couldn't call the second game. But I mean, so far, I think Howland's got a good team. Bayes is a guy at the hot corner that plays really well. Masucci's, they got 3 Masucci's on their team, and anytime you see that name, you know it's going to be a good lineup. Yeah, Howland's good. Like you mentioned, they got good relief pitchers outside of Gebhart. So when you look at a district team, you need guys outside of one pitcher, right? I mean, usually you could get through the district and the region with 2 pitchers, but if you throw a Gebhart in a big game against the Canfield, say he gets you 5 innings, you need somebody to come out of the pen and lock down a team, and those 2 guys with the no-hit performance against Struthers can do that. So I think Howland's got a good squad as well, and then we kind of move over to Boardman, a team that has so much talent with Griffin Widrig, who's on the mound for them as well, and he's a stud. And then you move over to Fitch, who's got a Coral, a Roth, 2 guys that are really good on the mound. So I think this is one of the best pitching conferences in the state because Canfield's got Landon Beitelshees. They got Nate Shaw, who's committed to Wright State. Ryan Petro, uncommitted. I don't know how. He's absolutely electric with a slider. He's got unbelievable command with a fastball. So he's one of the best pitchers, in my opinion, in the state of Ohio that hasn't been committed yet. So I would vouch for him any day that he could play big D1 baseball. So yeah, I mean that's where this conference separates from everybody else. Their pitching is just unbelievable.
I agree with you on Petra, no doubt. They have a three gun holster right there with the Cardinals. It's unbelievable in the pitching staff. Well, Richie, without further ado, we're gonna try to make our picks as games have yet to be canceled. I still checked on the schedule. We don't have anything red right now, so I guess we're just picking for placeholders in games. We'll see if anything gets off tonight. But we'll go over the slate of games supposed to be happening tonight. We'll start ladies first on the softball realm and just games happening in the area. First and foremost, big matchup, I think, too, between 2 power ranked teams, Lakeview at Champion. And this is a good one with Lakeview winning 1 out of the 2 in that doubleheader against Akron St. Vincent St. Mary's. They've been on the rise. But, I mean, Champion's champion. I mean, what are you thinking on this game, Richie?
Yeah, I'm going to take Champion, although this is big for Lakeview. I mean, what were they, 7 or 8, I think, in our power ranking?
Yeah, 8, I believe.
8. So this is big for the NE8 conference, too, to take down a powerhouse and Champion, a team, that over the past 10 years has won probably more softball games than any other program around. So this could be a big win for Lakeview. And, today when you look at all these matchups, it's all about pitching today because it's not a hitter's day here in the Mahoning Valley and Trumbull County and wherever you may be playing. I mean, I look behind me right now and it's snowing sideways. So,
yeah.
If they do get these games off, it's all going to be about the pitching. I mean, these games are going to be 2-1, 1-0.
Yeah, I'm going to go Champion as well, too. Just going to take the prestige, but I think Lakeview will have something to say, and they've been looking really good to start the season. Camel at Garfield going up next, softball realm again. I got to stay with Garfield, I think, on this one.
Same. Yep.
Going forward, too, Girard at Hubbard, a fun little matchup inside the NE8. What do you think on this one, Richie?
Yeah, I'm going to go Hubbard. I know Roma was pretty upset the last time that I didn't pick his Eagles. I think that was against the Irish when they were playing at YSU. So I'm going to take Hubbard this time. They're top 10 in our power rankings as well. They got a good squad this year.
They do have a good squad, and Coach Amaro doing a great job with that Eagles squad. I got to go Hubbard as well. North Canton Hoover at Louisville. This is a good matchup for the Leopards playing one of D1's best in the softball realm. This is tough because I think Hoover scrimmaged Fitch. Fitch looks solid in that one. I just have a hunch with Louisville. They play good against these Federal League teams. They've kind of been ironed by it now. I got to go with Louisville in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to stay YSN proud here and go Louisville. I mean, North Canton Hoover, don't get me wrong, unbelievable on the softball side. Even their baseball team is probably one of the best in the state every single year. But, you got to go with the YSN school here. You got to stay proud.
Indian Creek at East Liverpool in the softball realm. I mean, Indian Creek always has good programs. So does East Liverpool. What do you got on this one, Richie?
Let's go East Liverpool.
I'll go Potters as well. Jackson Milton going to Sebring as the Jays trying to bounce back after suffering a couple of defeats against McDonald in the doubleheader, trying to get back on track in the conference. I'm going to take the Blue Jays in this one against Sebring.
Yeah, same.
Going forward, Lake Center at Warren JFK on the softball realm. Richie, what you got on this one?
It's Lake Center or Lakeside?
Lake Center at Warren JFK.
Okay. I don't know.
I'm thinking Lake Center Christian, I would think, is probably.
Yeah, probably. I'm going to go JFK.
Yeah, why not go JFK?
Center, to be honest.
Rock that banner. Lowville at Western Reserve on the softball realm. Interesting matchup here.
Oh, all right. See, now I like when the YSN matchups come up because, like a Lake Center, you just don't know much about. I'll let you go first.
This one, I'm gonna go with Western Reserve in this one. They're home. I'll take Reserve. It's Reserve in Lowville.
I'll go Reserve. I'll go Reserve, yeah.
Okay. Here's one that's another tough one. And another battle between power ranked teams. Poland at South Range softball realm.
Yeah, this doesn't matter what sport it is. I mean, this is always a battle.
At South Range.
Yeah. South Range played so well too in Myrtle Beach.
Yeah.
They played so well. And Poland obviously hasn't gotten that experience yet. So I'm going to take South Range.
For the sake of just needing to split, I'll go with Poland. Katie McDonald has looked dynamic in the circle, and if she pitches, if it comes down to pitching, I like her. But no doubt South Range has electric arms as well. It should be fun. Southern at United. United was impressive against Lisbon. They've been impressive in the conference. I'm not going to pick against them. I'm going Eagles in this one.
Same.
As we turn over to the baseball side of things, games on the network first and foremost. We'll start there. 4:45 p.m. start time on Bob Scene 1. Hopefully. We'll see. Bob Zanny on the call. It's Jefferson at Struthers.
Struthers.
I'll go Wildcats as well. Even though Jefferson was looking really good against Poland with that victory, that long drive, and if they have to make that drive into this weather, it's going to be tough for them, I think. East at Beaver Local baseball. It's at Beaver Local. I'm going to go Beavers on this one.
Yep, same.
We go into Lowville at Western Reserve in baseball realm. So both doubleheader, softball and baseball. What do you got in this one, Richie?
I'll take Lowville on this one.
I'll go Rockets as well. I think Coach Doherty has done a good job over there with Lowville. This one, another tough one, but this one goes to the baseball side of things now. It's Poland at South Range, too. So, again, we go into this battle. This is going to be tough. I went Poland in the softball one, but I don't know if I could go against South Range in this baseball one. Billy Skirpak looked really dynamic.
Yeah, I'm for sure taking South Range. I think, they're off to a great start already this season. Poland had 2 losses early, so I'm going to go with South Range.
And we go down to Myrtle Beach. It's East Lincoln versus Canfield at Myrtle Beach. Dom Files will have the call on this one. I mean, Richie, do we have any reason to go against Canfield at this point?
I think this whole weekend, if I had to do picks, I'd take Canfield 4 or 5-0, whatever they play.
They're number 1 ranked in our power rankings for a reason, folks. We're saying they're the best we got for a reason, and I think they're going to flex their muscles down there. Here's an interesting one for you. Latonia at East Palestine. Right now, yellow. We'll see if it's on the network. Stay tuned, but still going to be happening. Hopefully, we'll see if the weather doesn't cancel it. We don't have any word yet. But what do you have on this one, Richie? It's Bears at Bulldogs. Latonia
Bulldogs.
I'll take Palestine as well. They've been looking impressive in recent weeks on the baseball side. St. Thomas Aquinas at Warren JFK on the docket at 5 p.m. And I mean, I know the Eagles are 2-2, but they also played Division II state champion, hoping for one of those losses, and Ursuline. I got to go JFK in this one.
Yeah, same.
We go into games that are just happening around the area, not on the network. Brookfield at Newton Falls, 5 p.m. start for that. What do you got, Richie? It's an interesting game because Brookfield kind of bounced back. They got a win. Newton Falls suffered a loss, but they got some wins on the season.
Yeah. I'm going to take Newton Falls.
I'll split with you and go Brookfield just because both of these teams are kind of in the same spot. So we'll see what happens with that. Camel at Garfield. I think Garfield, after beating Newton Falls 5-2, figured it out after they dropped a couple games. I think they're going to continue rolling, especially being at home against Camel. I'm going to go Garfield.
Yeah, same.
Girard at Hubbard. This is going to be interesting on the baseball side.
Yeah, this is a good one.
What do you got here, Richie?
I'm going to go Hubbard here.
Yeah, I think Hubbard, the Eagles being at home, is going to be a huge task for Girard to handle. Here's another interesting one on the docket. Howland at Lakeview, and a surging Lakeview baseball team that I think might be cracking the top 10 in this upcoming power rankings. But Howland just threw that combined no-hitter against Struthers. So this is a very interesting game. It's at Lakeview. This would be huge for Howland, I mean, to prove that the conference is one of the toughest, too, if you get a win against Lakeview. But I don't know. I'm riding with the Bulldogs. They've been surging. They've been getting wins against some impressive teams. They beat Ursuline on the year. They beat Niles now. I'm going to go with Lakeview Bulldogs on this one.
All right, we'll take a split here. I'm going to take the Tigers. I mean, I can't go against them now. I've been talking them up for, the past 15 minutes. So they got Gebhardt on the mound. I feel like they could beat anybody in this region, to be honest with you.
They have some dynamic pitching. There's no doubt. Howland, always one of the best baseball programs. Indian Creek at East Liverpool baseball. What do you have on this one, Richie?
Give me the Potters, baby.
Yeah, I'll go Potters as well. Matthews at LeBray on the baseball side. LeBray looking to get a win at home. I'll stick with it. I'm not sure what Matthews' baseball program's been like. I know their softball programs has had a state championship in recent memory. But I'm going to go Vikings in this one.
Yeah, same. We got to stick with the banner.
Final game that we have here on our list, Wellsville at Columbiana, 5 p.m. start. Yeah, I got a Clipper clap along with you. Columbiana's looking strong, and I think they're going to continue to impress inside the conference and even further than that. I mean, they're probably going to crack top 5 again. That's going to be an interesting discussion point. Don't forget, we'll be looking forward on our social media pages for the power rankings list too. Usually look to Tuesday. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter to get the updates on the power ranking list, as well as look on our website, ysnlive.com, and our YouTube pages. As we wrap up this show, first and foremost, want to thank Skylar Greenheisen for taking the time to interview with Anthony Hartwig, and that interview can be found again at the article Sky's the Limit with the interview attached, found on ysnlive.com, as well as our YouTube page, YSN Live. We looked ahead at the scores. We looked ahead at some YSU baseball, discussed some things too, and we also thank Richie Giuliano for joining us today to make some picks, talk that YSU baseball too, and just carry us through the second half of the show.
One thing I want to add before we kind of wrap up, I saw Columbiana on the baseball side. They play Austintown Fitch on April 29th, so the end of the month, and you'll probably be on that call. It's at Fitch as well. So, I mean, that will be a really good judgment when you look at Columbiana's schedule because they play a lot of teams that aren't ranked in the top 10. And that'll be a great judgment to see kind of where this program is at when they play at Fitch on the 29th because they're going to know that they're going to have to bring their best that game.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's, I believe, only the second game. They did beat Ursuline after Lakeview did, but that's I think the only power ranked team that they've beaten, but they did showcase that they can beat them. It's going to be interesting going forward. I think Columbiana also plays Fitch softball that same day too, so that'll be a fun matchup as well. We look forward to all those games. Of course, stay tuned to our friends over at WFMJ, the Storm Tracker over there to get any weather updates. We'll get you updated too on our socials as games get canceled, moved, delayed, added, anything of that nature too. Stay tuned to our social media pages for that as we look forward to a Tuesday edition of Running Point coming up too. So far, I believe we have one coach confirmed so far to look forward to as we're going to go into, I believe, South Range softball as we have a Coach Hannock from South Range Softball coming on tomorrow too. So don't want to miss that interview, as well as our power rankings. Expect to drop tomorrow as well. So we'll look forward to talking that as well. But until then, stay tuned for Casual Sports Podcast coming up from 2 to 3 and Power Hour from 3 to 4. This is Ty Martell along with Richie Giuliano as the call is in, as we are out as well with YSN's Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.